So hi, everybody. I just want to let you know, still flying, despite the brain fog. See, the brain frog. Sherry, that's definitely an outtake. The brain fog that's become a definite and recognizable pattern of physiology of mind, maybe even Kasha, post-Generation W. It was hard to believe that it's been 3 years since we last gathered in the Lazara Theater at the University of North Florida to celebrate Generation W. And for those of you who are not following here, Generation W is our national thought leadership event. We host it once a year, and we recently had it on April 1st. I have to tell you, it was challenging emerging from the pandemic. Different levels of feelings of safety, questions lingering as to whether we are coming or going. And you know what? They're still pervading. But we took the leap. And how amazing was it to be together? It was amazing. We had 600 attendees from across the states. Everybody's so eager, open, exciting. It's that energy that comes to define Generation W that gets us all, right? So worked up in a very positive way. You know what I mean? And it was great for those people, for all of us to share a hug, a fist bump, see a smile without a mask, or even smiling eyes for those who chose to wear a mask. We have endured, we have thrived, and as Dr. Olenda Johnson said, the amazing Dr. Olenda, we are still here. She opened the conference with our theme of connection, and I have to just say, with this sense of gratitude, we wake each day still experiencing the swirl. It seems like every day now there's a new headline that takes over our hearts and minds, and then we move to the next thing. We almost have to we have to think about ways to move together, because we are stronger together. And that power of connection, I'll tell you what, it's a day to remember and a spirit that we will refresh all year long together. So I say to you, everybody, hello, welcome to Refresh, time to connect, to be inspired, to learn something, and ultimately feel a bit better for this time spent together. There it is again, that word together. And that's what Generation W is all about. So for all of you who have tuned in, who are with us on April 1st, it's great to see all of you. We all know it was a day of connection. There were powerful speakers, content, messages, emotions. As I said, I'm still recovering. But we are Generation W, and all of us, I went to an event this morning and just did a panel on women on boards, which is really great. But we're all relishing the positivity, right? That spirit, that sense of connection that gives us fuel to get through all the days and all the challenges. Don't hesitate to put something that you appreciated up in the chat or send it to us. If you were unable to attend Generation W in person, or feeling as I do that you want to see some of it again, maybe Laura too, you can still watch the amazing speakers, insightful panels, and feel the energy. You can purchase a link. I think Gloria's going to put it in the chat. And it's just for first timers. If you were there in person, then you will get access to a link. Just let us know and we will make that happen. And I got to tell you, it's a wonderful story of reconnection that brings us here to this particular refresh. Because you see, you never know where a chance conversation could lead you. Oh, by the way, that's on page 46 of my new favorite book, Level Up, because that's how Laura's with us today. Let me just tell you a little bit about Lara. Laura's this amazing rocket scientist, mom, entrepreneur, athlete, actually charter school founder, and all-around Wonder Woman, who's the co-author of this new great book called Level Up with Stacey Abrams. So a couple of weeks ago, I happened to see the announcement in a LinkedIn post, and because I know Lara and Stacey, and I, haven't really been in touch in a while, I came from my time working at Atlanta to launch a WNBA team. Many of you may have heard the Atlanta Dream, and they were part of it. We were all there together, the collection of sisters in Atlanta, and I was delighted to see this work. So I sent her a note. Lara, I would love to help. This is great any way I can. And immediately she responded. I'm like, this is fantastic, because as it says on page 46, you never know where a chance conversation can lead you. One thing leads to another. The next thing I hear is Laura's flying to Jacksonville. She's bringing her books. She's working with the San Marco bookstore. And oh my God, here we are together today. And I can't tell you how it's why we do what we do, right? It's why we do why we do. And so here she is, her book being sold. She brings her positivity. Laura's just a driving force for good. She has great stories to share. You can see all my pink marks here. I'm going to give our attendees today just that little blurb that you do that's official, like level up, rise above the hidden forces holding your business back. A must-read guide that includes behind-the-scenes stories on life, curiosity, and building relationships from Lara Hodgson, Lara Hodgson and Stacey Abrams. And, I have to tell you that when I was talking to Lara the other day, it is a business book and there's lots of good stuff, but it is a life book. So Lara, tell us a little bit about the background of this book, and then there's so many directions to go, and we will. Lara,
well, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's so funny because, as you know, Stacey and I have worked together for 17 years. And I think almost every year someone would approach one or both of us and say, oh my gosh, you guys should write a book. And Stacey is a very accomplished writer. She loves to write books. I am the opposite. I am a speaker. Give me a microphone and 1,000 people, I'm good to go. But I'm not a writer. I'm an aerospace engineer, for gosh sake. I mean, putting sentences together is not something I do. And so every time people would suggest it, I would just sort of, say, yeah, maybe someday. And so about almost exactly a year ago, a friend of mine from business school had posted a congratulations to Stacey for an award that she won. And I commented, so proud of my business partner. And my classmate from Harvard said, wait a minute, how did I not know you guys are business partners? And I thought, well, I don't know. Why would you know that? I don't walk around with a poster on my forehead. And she happens to be a book agent. And she said, oh my gosh, have you guys ever thought about writing a book? And, I was like, get in line with the number of people that have asked that. And so I got Stacey on the phone, and I was sort of joking about the fact that everyone keeps saying we should write a book. And she said, ever since we've worked together, I've either been in office, I've been helping someone else run for office, I've been running for office myself. And this is really the 1 year that I'm not. So maybe we could think about finally taking the time to sit down and share our stories. But I think the two reasons that really drove us to make it happen, because you talk about things a lot, but the two things that really drove us to make it happen is, one, coming through the pandemic, we have never had more businesses started in the history of this country. A lot of them by women and minorities. But at the same time, we're in an entrepreneurship crisis because the vast majority of those companies will never live to hire another employee. So really, you've created a job instead of a company. And if we don't share the lessons learned to help more of these companies grow and sustain themselves, then that is actually a potential negative for our economy. And the second reason is that I have a 16-year-old son. And
I just want to say, I remember like when that 16-year-old son was not like a little baby, right?
Total aside, when my son Connor was born, the first sporting event he ever went to were the Atlanta Dream Games, because we sat right there in the little founders row, and our mascot was a bird named Star, right? And all I remember was the mascot coming up and me saying to my son, look, Connor, it's Star. And he looked at me like I was, had a third eye. He looked at me and he said, no, bird. It was not a star. So he was learning his shapes. But the second thing that really drove me to write the book now is that I'm watching my child grow up in a world that's never been more polarized, where people tell you things like, if you're not with me, you're against me. And I just think that is so sad. And it's so wrong, because Stacey and I are different on so many axes, and that's our superpower. It's why we work well together. So I really wanted the book to also deliver the message to young people that differences are amazing, and you should want to surround yourself by people that are different than you.
Okay, and there's so many, listen, you've given me a lot of hooks here, but I just want to say hello to all of our friends on Facebook who also join us. And Jackie said, I bought this book at Gen W, can't wait to read it. Well, I think that's good because it's really that good. All right, so one of the first things you talk about, and you've alluded to it here, is differences are your superpower.
Yeah.
And I just think the power of your relationship, you and Stacey. Listen, I've always known Stacey to be a uniter, never a divider, right? And I can say that about Stacey because she's always been kind of in the public eye, now more than ever. But early on, she was kind of like just doing her thing, and her thing has always been about bringing people together.
Yeah.
People will look at you and say, "Oh my God, you are so different. How do you make this work? How do you?"
And people have always said that, because when Stacey and I had started our first company, she had obviously recently been elected to the Georgia State House of Representatives and then subsequently became the minority leader. I, at the same time, was appointed to the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority Board by the then Republican governor. And people would look at us and say, "How does this work?" And we would respond, "It works amazing." In fact, 99% of the time, we agree on the outcome that we want to achieve. How we would go about getting there is very, very different. And you know what? That's okay. Right. Because if you focus on the goal, if you focus on the outcome, very often the different approaches don't have to be or, they can be and. But you have to approach the problem, with maintaining focus on the outcome. Because the minute you start to focus on your way of doing it, then the differences become friction. They become a problem. But if you focus on the outcome, and number two, always approach the problem with curiosity first and criticalness second. So when Stacey or I share an opinion and we don't agree with it, the first thing we do is we ask curiosity-based questions. Help me understand. Interesting. Why do you approach it that way? I'm not sure I understand that. You have all the time in the world to be critical. But I think in the world that we're in today, we don't take the time to be curious first. We immediately leap to judgment and criticality, as opposed to assume good intentions, assume a possible common outcome, and then be curious about how you might combine polarly opposing approaches to find a third way that's even better than the other two were.
Oh, I love that. And I feel like, yes, I can definitely leap to judgment, even though I want to find a common outcome. And I can see where that can really impact in not a good way, even when you get there. So from a process point of view, it's so interesting, right? And this
the minute you leap to judgment, you can't go back to the curiosity. But if you start with the curiosity, you can always go back to the judgment piece. You got all the time in the world to do that. But you've got to keep that open mind, because again, you can be on two total opposite sides of something and find common ground.
Without a doubt. So let me ask you though, you said this kind of why you did this book, but it begs just the next question, which is, we are so polarized in some ways these days that even associating with somebody who is different from you adds a tarnish to you, or it says something about you. Now, in this case, I think it says amazing, beautiful, wonderful, hopeful things about our world, the way you two can partner. Yeah. But there are others who will shy away and says, "Oh my goodness, if you can work with someone like that side of the aisle, then you know what, I'm not part of it." And that's troubling.
And that's the problem. I mean, the reality is, if you find someone who's willing to work with someone on the other side of an issue, what it should say about them is courage. Because the reality is, all progress happens in the middle. And the middle's messy. The middle is uncomfortable. The middle is challenging. The middle causes you to have to work and put in effort and think. It is much easier to just sit on the edges under the comfort of a label and not have to work at thinking. And so, to be willing to work with people that are different, it does take courage. It takes resilience. It takes patience. It takes an open-mindedness and a willingness to not always be right. But if you can do that, the rewards are indescribable. I mean, the joy that you can find on the other side when you've waded through the messy middle, that's where innovation happens. That's where progress in our society happens, and we have to all be willing to go back there. It's an amazing place to be.
The messy middle. I just wrote
The
that
messy
down.
middle.
You have to wade through I like the messy middle, actually.
Me too.
Some days.
Me too, because I find people fascinating. I love people.
I love that about you, I have to say. But this messy middle, I'm gonna take it to read a paragraph. Let's see if my brain frog will let me do that, because messy middle speaks to me about ambiguity. And we have spent a lot of time on refreshes over the last actually 2 years, talking through the world, the ambiguous world we live in, and how challenging that is. And I think we're getting more resilient about it. But in your book, I just love this, and I actually did it all in pink. Successful founders are even more comfortable with ambiguity, the uncertainty of not knowing all the answers, not knowing the next steps. We weren't just okay with the uncertainty, we thrived on it. If you don't know the next step, then you can be curious, and there's your word again. You can be open-minded. You can allow an opportunity to come your way. Whereas if you're anxious, which most of us can be, and you have to have every next step planned out, then you're not really able to notice opportunities coming your way. That is not only a business lesson, so we're going to talk, that is an incredible, timely life lesson, Lara.
It is, and there's 2 places in my life that I learned it, which means the first time it didn't stick. The first time I learned it,
good to know we have multiple chances to learn.
I mean, you know, we all keep learning. The first time I learned it was actually in college. I was at Georgia Tech studying aerospace engineering, and I was a scholarship member of the varsity track and field team. I was a heptathlete. Now, I can tell you that no one in the history of Georgia Tech, maybe any university, can say they were an aerospace engineering major and a varsity track and field athlete. And so I was constantly having to balance, you know, getting my actual credits so that I could graduate, but also, you know, being a full active member of the team. And so I was meeting with my academic advisor one day, and she said, "Oh my gosh, there's this amazing program that the US Defense Department is doing in Japan, and they're going to select 20 engineering students from the United States and send them to Japan to learn Japanese. You should apply." And I am certain that I looked at her incredibly quizzically, like, why in the world would I do that? Because I was that person that had to have everything planned out. If you had asked me what I wanted to do with my life, I would have told you back then, I'm going to get a PhD in aerospace engineering. I'm going to be the first female professor in aerospace engineering. And I said this plan that adults all seemed impressed by. And when you're a kid and you say something and adults are impressed, you say it again. And then eventually over time, you start to believe it yourself. So I thought I wanted to get a PhD in aerospace engineering and be the first female professor at Georgia Tech in aerospace engineering. So when this woman suggested that I should go to Japan and study Japanese, I thought, have you not been listening to my wonderful plan? And she looked at me and said, "Lara, when will you ever get the chance to do something you would never do?" And I'll tell you, I can almost always come up with an answer to a question, even if I make it up, but I did not have an answer to that one. And so long story short, 6 months later, I found myself on a plane to Japan. I had never been outside the United States except to drive to Niagara Falls. And so talk about outside your comfort zone. I was on the other side of the world from my comfort zone. And so that was the first time I learned to sort of let go of this constant need to be in control of the outcome and the plan. But the second time I learned it was from Stacey. And we were in the middle of our first business. Stacey is a prolific author of romance novels, which not a lot of people know. And we were sitting in a meeting and she had this distracted look on her face. And I said, "You know, what are you thinking about?" And she said, "Well, there's this character in my book and he hasn't told me what he's going to do next. And I'm really frustrated because I don't know what he's planning to do." And you can imagine what was going through my mind, analytical engineer, which was,
your character, Stacey.
do I need to call help for you? Do you need medication because you're hearing voices, right? Like, you created the character, you the one that decides what he does next. And she said to me, no, when I start writing a book, my characters take on a life of themselves and they eventually teach me who they are and what they want to do. And that was so amazing to me that you could be so open and comfortable with that. But I've had to work at it. Stacey is very natural at it. For me, it's something I've had to work at my whole life.
That is so. I'm writing this down. My characters teach me what they want to do. I think I do relate to that. I think we in the quick to judgment thing, Laura.
Yeah.
I think that the world wants to have plans because we need structure. I am probably more oriented like Stacey. I wait for the world to talk to me a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then we need structure to move things along. I do get both of them. That's why difference is a superpower, right?
It is. And if you can harness the power of what you just said, which is allow the world to talk to you, it's really what my advisor was saying. When will you ever get the chance to do something you would never do? If you're so focused on your plan, when will you notice opportunities? When will you notice things that come out of left field? And I think most of us, if we think back over our life, some of our greatest experiences came out of left field. We weren't planning on them. They just happened. And if you were open-minded to it, you embraced it. If you weren't, you pushed it away and didn't even know that the opportunity was there.
Without a doubt. So let me ask you, you went to Japan, felt like a fish out of water. Yeah. As you reflect on that experience, how did it contribute to where you're sitting today? Unanticipated. Perhaps.
Yeah. Well, the first thing it did is my charades got really good because I had to sign an agreement that I would speak no English and my Japanese was rudimentary at best. And so I had to use a lot of charades to find food and, live day to day. But I think the biggest thing it did for me is, again, I was so focused on PhD, engineering, be a professor. I didn't know about the world. I didn't know about people. I didn't know about careers. And it was the first time when you're sitting on the other side of the world and you're watching your own culture, you see it through a different lens. I was very lucky while I was in Japan. It was during the 1992 Olympic Games. And watching the Olympics through the eyes of a different culture was so interesting because, for example, in the United States, we love to celebrate excellence. We celebrate the gold medal. We celebrate the dream team. In Japan, they celebrated things like resilience. So if there was an athlete that didn't even make it to the finals, but had overcome amazing obstacles just to get there, that was the hero. And I just remember thinking, wow, a lot of times your character traits, your priorities are the lens that you see things through. And it was the first time I got to kind of look back at the United States and the things that we prioritize and that we hold in high esteem and actually question those a little bit. And it taught me to be open-minded, that the world doesn't all see the same thing through the same lens, and that's okay.
No, it's fantastic, and I can totally relate on many levels, but I would say moving from New York to Jacksonville when I did, that was the lesson I learned, right? I thought everybody saw the world like New Yorkers. And then I realized there's a whole other world out there that doesn't. And then you extrapolate that to a greater international context. I'm holding up the book again because I'm going to go to another one of my pinkies here and my notes, which is, there's a great line you talk about, everyone talks about business not being personal. And you said, like, really? All business is personal. Can you share a little bit about that? Because this is a very personal, I told Laura this, ladies, or whoever's on, I'm not sure, we may have some men today as well. I'm thinking, are you really going to tell us what happened in that conversation? And they do. And it's fantastic. Like, you're with them. So tell me about business being personal.
I mean, one of the statements I hate the most, and I hear it every day, is it's not personal, it's just business. It's not personal. Well, you know what? Think about that sentence. It makes no sense because business is only about people. I mean, without people, there are no reason to make things or offer services. I mean, it's people. And so all business is personal. In fact, we should change it and say, it's not business, it's personal. And I think if we remembered that, we would treat our business very differently. A lot of times when we get so focused on the business as if it's this, sort of character in and of itself, and we forget about the humanity behind it, which are the employees, the investors, the shareholders, the clients, the customers, your partners, every single one of those categories goes home at night to a parent, a spouse, a child, a family, and they only do what they do to create happiness and success for those people in their lives. And if we remember that, I often tell people, when I was growing up, I was taught that I should be a success at everything I did, whether it was sports, business, it's all about winning. But success is finite. That just means you won the race, you won the game, you got the award. The bigger goal in life is significance, because that's infinite. If your goal in life is success, you are not thinking big enough. Significance means you did something that impacted somebody else, and that never ends. So if you go to your job tomorrow, whether you own the business like I do or you work at a business, and instead of saying, I'm going to be successful today, you say, I'm going to be significant, it changes everything. It makes you much more client focused. It makes you much more focused on having an impact on the people that you work with. And I'll be honest, it makes you more profitable. There's that too.
It's funny because first of all, it is a magnificent, I don't even want to call it a theory. It's just a magnificent tenet, right? Success is finite. Significance is infinite. I'm going to make a sign for that. You're going to set it up. You're going to have to sign it.
All right.
But I'm thinking about having to spend a whole morning focused on boards and shareholders. And, for them, success is metrics and numbers. And really, when we get into this deep, Laura, it really begs the reimagination and definition of what ROI is. What is a real, sustainable, infinite return on investment?
Well, and it's interesting because the KPIs, all of the metrics of success, they don't exist but for impact, right? If you're not having impact on the user isn't going to buy your stuff anymore. So, one of the things I often think about, and I counsel people to do this as well, is our whole life we've been taught to tell people what we do, right? What do you want to be when you grow up? Really stupid question. Totally. When people ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, I want to be Lara. Now, what do I want to do? That's something different. Right?
Well, at least you didn't say Stacey, right?
That's right. But I mean, I don't want to. I don't love
Stacey. I didn't mean to.
I don't want to be anything but who I am, right? But I also think when we look at like our resumes, a lot of people just write down, I was president of this organization. That's a what? That just means your butt kept a chair warm for a certain period of time. While you were in that role, what did you do? Right? Did you drive growth? Did you drive sales? Did you impact a certain number of people? Those are so whats. Those are impact. And that's the significance part. So I would argue that if a company's profitable, that might be success. But if they're profitable because they had an impact on their market, on their user base, on their constituents, that's impact, right? No, that's significance.
Without a doubt. I just want to remind everybody here, and welcome if you came a little bit late to Refresh. This is our first event post our big Generation W National Thought Leadership event. We are absolutely committed to refreshing people's spirits through great content and creating connections, being together. We are here today with Lara Hodgson. I have to read this again because I just thought this was so fun. The amazing rocket scientist, mom, entrepreneur, athlete, charter school founder, all-around Wonder Woman, and co-author of the new book called Level Up, which we're talking about today, which is actually, it's a must-read guide that includes behind-the-scenes stories on life. I loved every behind-the-scenes story. I told her I think it should just continue because now I feel like I'm part of their life. Curiosity and Building Relationships from Lara and her co-author, Stacey Abrams. There you are. And there's a link where you guys can buy it. We did have it at Generation W. And of course, We have it right here. And as soon as I'm done, I'm happy to lend it to somebody if you would like. Laura, you were nice enough, as you know, for all of our Refresh programs, all of our great guests provide, kind of 3 leave behinds, if you will, for our attendees to think about, some actionable items. And so, Laura, we called it Ways to Level Up Your Life, of course. Let's talk through these a little bit.
Yeah.
And by the way, let me just, if anybody has any questions, Facebook, I'm checking Facebook, which is why if you see me look down, and our Zoom, please forward them along. Laura, as she told you, she loves to chat. So let's test her rocket scientist brain.
And you asked me for 3, I gave you 4 because I always have to overachieve.
Of course. Okay, I got it. All righty.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first one I said was create a personal board of directors. This is my response to the question of, do you have a mentor? When I was coming out of college, everybody would ask me, do you have a mentor? Do you have a mentor? And I used to get really stressed about, am I picking the right mentor? And what I started to realize is that that's a lot of pressure on somebody to be like your mentor, because it assumes that they can really help you with all the different aspects of your life and your career and your business. And the reality is your life is shaped by a lot of different people. And when you pick a mentor, unfortunately, you tend to pick someone that you're very comfortable with. So I think of a mentor as somebody that's going to pat me on the back when things are going bad. But you know what? My mother does that for me. So that's not really what I needed. What I needed was kind of the opposite. I needed a group of people that were willing to call BS when I was believing my own mess, not somebody who's going to pat me on the back. So I kind of turned upside down this concept of a mentor, and I created a personal board of directors. These are people that are from different parts of my life. They are not my closest friends. They are not involved in my business. They are not in my industry, but they are people that can look like I try to meet with them quarterly. I share with them some of the decisions I've made in my life and my business. And what they try to do is tell me when something doesn't make sense. Like, Laura, why would you do that? Like, that's totally incongruent with your character base or your priorities. And so I often challenge people, build a personal board of directors, people that over time can help you when you start to go off the guardrails. And it's a very different sort of dynamic than just having like a mentor. The second one is kind of where we started, Donna, which is talk to everyone. As I said, I think people are fascinating. And I think that, many of us, I believe that your network is your net worth. And a lot of people stress about that because you don't come from a background that gives you a natural network. I didn't come from a background with a natural network. I didn't come from a family of business owners or influential people or, community leaders. Neither did Stacey. But the way we built our network over time was talking to everyone. So for example, if you are sitting next to me on a flight, I hope you didn't want to read because you will talk to me. If you bag my groceries, I will talk to you. I'm going to ask you how your day was. I'm going to ask you, are you a student? What do you do? Because you will find opportunity in the darndest of places. And it's always where you're never looking. And it's always where you would have shut out judgment. So, the most important person to your network could just as easily be the person bagging your groceries as it could be the CEO in a networking event. Titles don't matter. People have connections, and those connections could be valuable for you. So I will tell you, one of the most valuable things that I did in the last several years with my company was to create this bond deal. Now, prior to doing that deal, all I knew about bonds was how to spell the word. But I was on my son's lacrosse field when he was getting ready for practice one day. And if you've ever seen a 10-year-old boy try to get in and out of lacrosse gear, it's like a salmon in a net. Like, he was stuck. He couldn't get the gear. His jersey was stuck. His head, his shoulder pads were sideways. And I was helping him wriggle out of his gear. And there was a dad standing a few feet away wearing a Georgia Tech golf shirt. And I commented, "Oh, I like your shirt." Now, we're in Atlanta, Georgia, so a Georgia Tech golf shirt is not noteworthy, right? It's not like we were in China. But I said it anyway. I was like, "Oh, I like your shirt." And he said, "Oh, I'm doing an evening MBA at Georgia Tech." "Oh, really? I went to Georgia Tech. What are you studying?" "Oh, well, I work in the bond market." And I was like, I want to do bonds. A year later, we went to breakfast, and a year later, we created an innovative new bond structure that had never been done before. That never would have happened in a networking event. It never would have happened in a boardroom. It never would have happened in a meeting. It had to happen on the lacrosse field. So every day you meet people on the subway, at soccer practice, on the airplane, walking down the sidewalk. Smile and say hello. You never know who you'll meet. The third one is don't just build diversity, curate it. And what I mean by that is I have been a part of organizations that claim they hire for diversity. So they go hire people who look different and speak different languages and have different backgrounds. And then almost immediately they teach you the way they do things, which means you've just trained the diversity right out of everybody, because the most beautiful diversity is the diversity of thought. Exactly. And so one of the things that we try to do at Now is not only, look at our team and make sure that we're constantly diverse, but I always challenge my team members, look to your left, look to your right. If at any point in time we've created a sub team that looks like you, raise your flag and let's shift things around. It's very easy, especially, people come up to me and they're like, oh, you have a women-owned business, that's diverse. And I'm like, well, an entire team of women is not diverse, by the way. It's not any more diverse than an entire team of men. So we've got to make sure that we're constantly curating that diversity so that we are encouraging it and we're feeding it, as opposed to like kind of training it out of people. And then the last one I actually mentioned earlier, which is, as you go through your life experiences, whether you're a student and you're joining a club, whether you're in your first job, whether you're in your 10th job, whether you're running your own company, or whether you're volunteering at a local charity, think about not just what you're doing, but the so what that you're doing. What is the impact that you're having? Because that's what matters to people, is your passion should be in the so what that you do, not the what. The what should be able to change tomorrow. It doesn't matter. The so what is what matters. So like with me and Now account, you could change anything about my company. I wouldn't care. What you cannot change is that my clients call us every day saying, I tripled my business because of you. I hired 5 new people because of you. So make sure that your ego and your passion are in the impact that you're having, not what you're doing.
Ego, and obviously that ties. I mean, that's consistent with your success is finite, significant is infinite. This is just awesome. I just want to let you know, Jackie from Facebook says this is great. Emmy says thank you. Jackie says titles don't matter. It's still a scary thought, but it's a great thing to remember. Actually, I have to just say, for me, when I walk in a room and I feel like a little insecure or whatever, I'm like, I don't think about titles, right? I think about humanity, right? Yeah. And we can all be human with each other as far as that goes. Let's see. Now, you haven't met Bridget before, but you and Bridget should be friends. Bridget's from Ghana. Hi, Bridget. Yeah, Brigitte. She's from Ghana. And she's just saying when she came to the WNB so she was my mentee. And from Ghana, and it was a State Department program. And one thing I commented was how people in New York did not say hello. No one acknowledged the other. No good morning for the sake of it. As an African and a Ghanaian, that seems so strange to me.
I totally agree. When I first moved to Boston, I would walk down the sidewalk and say hello to everyone, because in Atlanta, we say hello to everyone. And people would look at me like, why in the world are you talking to me? I don't think they were unfriendly. I think they were cold and they were in a hurry to get somewhere warm. But I intentionally say hello to everyone that I pass. And I'll tell you, there are studies out there about happiness that say that how happy you are in a given day is correlated to the number of people you interact with, not necessarily the depth of the interactions. So if you're having a day and you're kind of down, say hi to everybody. It will raise your spirits and theirs.
Wow, what an inexpensive and very accessible way to lift your spirits, right? That is
Yes.
so interesting. Well, then I want you to say hello to Joy Kurtz, who's back with us.
Hi,
Joy
Joy.
has had some personal experiences that have been challenging for her. She is a great member of our community, and she's opened up by saying she's glad to be back. She was also a high school principal. And
Oh,
so I just wanted to be able to surface her question, which was she's just curious about your charter school, where it is and what its goals are.
so my charter school is called Atlanta Heights Charter School. It's in Southwest Atlanta on MLK Drive, which is the one area of Atlanta that has the least amount of choice for education. And so we built the school 10 years ago. We serve K through 8. And what is unique about our school is really how we treat our scholars. And I'm intentional about that word. We don't use the word students, we have scholars. Our school's 99% free and reduced lunch. And when you join our school from the first day of kindergarten, you're taught to be able to look any adult in the eye, shake their hand, tell them your name, the grade you're in, your teacher's name, where you're going to go to college, and what you're going to study. And I don't care if you change it every day and make it up. But if you say it every day of your life from the first day of kindergarten to the last day of 8th grade, there is a very high likelihood that your expectations for yourself will raise. And so our goal is our school is called the Trailblazers. So every morning they say a creed about being an Atlanta Heights Trailblazer that is college bound and destined for greatness.
Oh, I love that. That is really fantastic. We only have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
By the way, Bridget's already organizing. She's telling me she's going to be in Atlanta. So you guys got to get together. By the way, she ran for national office in Ghana. A couple of years ago, which was really fantastic. But there's nothing that daunts her.
So Brigitte, you have to read the book Women World Leaders by Laura Listwood. She wrote a book and profiled at the time the 18 women who were current or former heads of state of their countries. And it is phenomenal.
Awesome. You got that, Bridge? I'm sure she does. Well, I just wanted to leave this. You mentioned this in the beginning, and I didn't want to leave with us touching it. The difference between a solopreneur and a lifestyle business person, right? So many businesses are lifestyle businesses. I don't want to go to an office. I don't want to report to anyone else. I want to create a company I can support myself. And you're right. A lot of those companies don't scale, and that's okay too.
Yeah,
but you seem to be focusing on helping us, women, it could be men who are launching business, reach some kind of scale.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of people who are freelancers or solopreneurs or lifestyle businesses. And if that is a conscious choice, it's amazing. But what Stacey and I had realized is there are so many people for whom that's not a conscious choice. They actually would like to scale the business because they would like to create jobs in their community. They would like to build generational wealth that could continue on to future generations. And if that's your aspiration, you should have a fighting chance to make that happen. And I know I had joined a company early in my career, and that's actually the question I posed the founder. Do you want this company, when you're done, to go away, which is fine, that's a lifestyle business, or do you want it to live beyond you? And there's not a right answer. Both answers are fine, but you have to consciously choose in order to do the right thing for the business and for yourself. What you don't want to do is just sort of meander about and say, oh, what will be, and maybe I'll be a solopreneur and maybe I'll scale a business. You have to be intentional about it. And it's a personal choice. And lots of people want to have a lifestyle business that is aligned with their career, and that's it. It provides great lifestyle and great flexibility. But if you want to do something different and you want to build, an ongoing business, you have to consciously decide that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really, and I really leaned, when I was reading that, I was really leaning into that question on so many levels, on behalf of so many people I know. It's a good reflection point. All right, everybody, listen, do I have to say anything more? Laura's fantastic. Level Up is the book. We did not talk about the difficulties in getting financing for a business, but all of the challenges that entrepreneurs face are definitely discussed in here with really good, thoughtful solutions and steps you can make to overcome them. But they also speak, what I loved about this, much more broadly to many life decisions. And Lara, I really like, this is great. Love to do it again. I would love you to say hello to Stacey from all of us. Tell her that at least I can speak for myself here. Always have been, forever will be a huge fan. Admire her work. Love the thought of you conspiring and creating such great value together. No, I'm serious. You know that, right? It's just,
Yeah.
tell her I loved the book. You have to tell her this. I love this book too, but I have the sequel to, what is it? When Justice Sleeps?
While Justice
Justice
Sleeps.
Sleeps. Oh my God, I read it in 2 days. Of course I see her there writing, so that like makes me happy.
Yeah.
Let me just say this to everybody. Thank you for joining us. We will be back. We are scheduled all the way out through June, just so you know. If you don't feel better, don't you feel better, I should say, doing business with companies, and Lara, you will love this because it's one of your companies that want to make a difference. Well, on April 27th, we'll learn how companies like Bombas is so in the forefront, paving the way of merging product and purpose. Again, right up your alley, Laura, with our special guest, Women in America mentee, Kate Hewitt. She's their Chief Customer Officer. And she has this whole thing about smiling every day. Kate is wonderful. So we can hear about her personal approach and how she got involved, and then how a big company like Bombas, which has scaled, is making a difference in the world. So Wednesday, April 27th at noon, we'll discuss the marrying of comfort and mission and cultivating lasting customer relationships. And probably we'll talk about just why it feels so good for all of us. Again, Generation W, thanks for those of you who have been there. If you want to see it again and you've been there, let us know. And if you haven't, trust me, the $99 investment in spending time in your time to share in the energy, the excitement, the knowledge, the learning, the emotions of Gen W is really a worthy investment in you and anyone you want to share it with. So again, Lara, love you to pieces. I am so excited. I took your advice, speak to everyone, even though you know them. And here we are. I wish you the best. I wish all of us the best. Level Up is a great book, and we'll be in touch. Everyone have a great week.
Bye.